Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 339, and today's date is April 12th, 2014, and the title of this episode is the Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all those people who donated to the X22Report.com site. I really do appreciate it. I am very grateful for the donations. Thank you very much. It keeps the site going. It keeps the People Forum going, and I really do appreciate it. And those people who are sending me information, thank you very much for sending me links and articles and things like that. Keep them coming, and this really helps out with the research of what is going on. Sometimes I do miss stuff. I am not perfect, and I really do appreciate you sending me everything. And those people who are sending me emails with questions, just because I don't answer your email right away doesn't mean I'm not going to. I get a lot of emails coming into the inbox. I go through them every single day, and depending on how much time I have, I write back almost every single person. Sometimes I don't have the time, but I will get back to everyone sooner or later, and I do appreciate all the mail that is coming in. Let's get into the economic collapse news. And we understand in the European nations, they are having a very rough time. They're in a recession/depression. I would call it more of a depression right now, because unemployment, the amount of debt, the amount of suffering that's going on out in Europe is, really getting worse every single day. And I've been saying this in the reports that the youth unemployment is very high in these countries. I mean, it's ranging anywhere from 30 to 60% depending on which country. And you have to remember, the youth, this is the foundation of every single country, because they come out of college or they come out of high school, they go to get work, they save their money, they have families, they buy homes, they use their money to buy furniture, disposable material, and everything that they're doing is the foundation and keeps the countries, the next generation, going. And we're seeing, just not in Europe, but in the U.S., we're seeing that youth unemployment is getting worse and worse. And right now, the International Monetary Fund has warned about the high level of youth unemployment in Italy. But they're not worried about it in Greece, which is much, much higher. And right now, with youth joblessness over 42%, the highest level ever recorded since 1977, they're saying that this is going to have a major problem in this country. And I hate to say it, this problem is going to be in every single one of the countries, even the United States, because without the youth working, we have major problems. And what they're worried about is that since the youth cannot find employment in Italy, they're going to leave the country and go someplace else. And what this goes on to say, that the soaring youth unemployment in Italy leaves an increasing number of young people with no option but to migrate to countries with better economies and more jobs. And it's getting harder to find those countries. And as more and more of those people pour in to other countries that do have good economies, they're going to run into a point where these people still can't get jobs because there's just too many of them. And this is a no-win situation, and we see this problem continually happening in every single country. It is not getting better, it is getting worse. So when they're out there telling us that they're seeing this incredible recovery, GDP is going to grow, how? There's nobody working. There's no one producing. It makes no sense in what they are saying. Now, here in the United States, I talk about real estate quite a bit, and we're following the pattern of mortgage applications declining. We're seeing that the insiders are dumping their real estate. They bought it in cash. They're trying to get everyday American people to buy it, and they're having a very tough time finding those people. But what we're seeing right now, a greater share of the U.S. mortgages were 30 to 59 days past due in the fourth quarter of 2013 and rising in the first quarter of 2014. So what does this actually tell us? It tells us those people who are being laid off, those people who are trying to get by, are having a tough time right now paying their mortgages. And this is just getting worse and worse, because the unemployment is not really going down. It's actually going up. More people are unemployed, more people are underemployed, and it's getting worse with these people trying to pay their mortgages, trying to pay their rent, trying to buy food, trying to clothe their children. And this situation is showing us that the real estate market is not going to get better. The economy is in a downward spiral, and we realize, and the government realizes, that there is a collapse on the horizon, and we can see it coming. We know it's coming, and every time we go through this data, we see more and more evidence that it is coming faster and faster towards us. Now, out on the Cliven Bundy Ranch, we see that this had nothing to do with tortoises. It had nothing to do with fees. It had nothing to do with anything that they were talking about, because what we're seeing right now, and thank you for those people who sent me this information, that Harry Reid is a part of this. So is his son, Rory Reid. They are a part of this whole problem. And in my last report, I said I wouldn't be surprised if it led up to a government official. Well, here we are with the government official. And this goes on to say that Harry Reid had plans for a solar plant that would go right where Bundy's cattle grazing has been done here. One document produced by the BLM indicates that this area where Bundy grazes his cattle has been designated a solar energy zone. The document states in part, non-governmental organizations have expressed concern that the regional mitigation strategy for the Dry Lake and Solar Energy Zone utilizes Gold Butte as a location for off-site mitigation for impacts from the solar development, and that those restoration activities are not durable with the presence of trespass cattle. Reid and his oldest son, Rory, are both involved in an effort by a Chinese energy giant, ENN Energy Group, to build a $5 billion solar farm and panel manufacturing plant in the southern Nevada desert. Reid has been one of the project's most prominent advocates, helping recruit the company during a 2011 trip to China and applying his political muscle on behalf of the project in Nevada. So we can see right now that all of this, again, is a complete lie. Why the BLM was there, why they wanted fees, why they took his cattle, all of it was an illusion. It was fake. Just like everything else the government tells us, it always comes back to corporate money control the people. And we see this continually happening over and over again. Now, there is a newspaper out there, or a website out there, the Daily Cause, and they're out there saying that, and they're labeling Cliven Bundy right now as the right-wing extremist, and their enablers are defending a far-right domestic terrorist lawbreaker by the name of Cliven Bundy, who is threatening a range war against the federal government. And we have to remember, when they start labeling people domestic terrorists, extremists, things like that, we have to think of the NDAA. And this is how they will use this against the people that aren't doing what the federal government wants. They can start labeling them domestic terrorists. Once you're or an extremist or a radical right-wing extremist or whatever they like to call you, because then this fits into the NDAA. Then they can say, well, according to the NDAA law, you are a domestic terrorist. We need to lock you up for 1 year without due process. And we can see how this could apply to every single person that criticizes or does not go along with the government, because most of the time the federal government is pushing individual agendas in the Senate, in the White House, in any part of the government, because it goes back to corporations, money, control of the people. So every time you see the government come down hard on the people just like this with snipers and helicopters and armed men and dogs, this is not how a government conducts itself when they're dealing with a person that is trampling on the rights of a turtle or owes fees. It is another reason that goes far beyond what the corporate media is telling everyone. And I see in ABC News and other news organizations, they don't even lead into Harry Reid or anything like this, or fracking or anything else that has to do with this. They don't even mention it whatsoever. But there has been an update with BLM and Cliven Bundy. It seems like they've made some type of deal right here. The Bureau of Land Management is backing away from the Bundy Ranch, citing safety issues. And again, safety issues for who? First of all, the people are out there in their own free will fighting against something that the federal government is trying to push on them. And what the government is trying to push on them is fake, false, and phony and completely illegal in what they are doing. And this goes on to say, as we have said from the beginning of the gather to remove illegal cattle from federal land, consistent with court orders, a safe and peaceful operation is our #1 priority. After 1 week, we have made progress in enforcing 2 recent court orders to remove the trespass cattle from public lands that belong to all Americans. We ask that all parties in the area remain peaceful and law-abiding as the Bureau of Land Management and National Park Services work to end the operation in an orderly manner. And as for the cattle, it seems like Cliven Bundy is working out a deal to pay for some of the cattle that is missing or sold or might even be dead at this point. So at this time, it seems like they have worked out some type of an agreement, but I'm kind of leery, and I don't trust the federal government, and I don't know if they are using this as a ploy to remove all the people that have come down to support Cliven Bundy so they can clear that out to make it easier for them to come in later on. But we'll have to see how this plays out and what occurs. Now, out in Ukraine, what we're seeing out there is thousands are rallying in Donetsk and in the government buildings in, I'm going to try to pronounce this one, Slaviansk. And it seems like the coup d'etat, the U.S. government, is losing the battle in Ukraine. It seems like city by city by city, region by region by region, it is all falling to Russia. They haven't even fired a shot. Of course, Ukraine has given ultimatums. They changed the laws. They don't know what to do. They're being pushed back into a corner, and it seems like they are losing their grip on Ukraine right now. An activist in Donetsk, a city in eastern Ukraine located in the north of the Donetsk region with a population of 120,000, seized the police headquarters and the city council building Saturday, and they are keeping control. They want to have a referendum. They want to be independent and separate and apart because they see what's happening. The coup d'etat came in, the central U.S. government, central bankers came in, took over. They're getting more debt. They can't find work. They have higher energy costs. Things are not looking good in Ukraine. And of course, there's no elections. It's still the acting government that was put into place during this whole fiasco. And we can see exactly what is occurring. It's the same thing that occurred in the Middle East and in Africa at this time. Now, we understand in Syria right now that they are removing the chemical weapons, and it's been a very tough time because the rebels are continually stopping them. And of course, the United States is out there saying, oh, look, Assad is stalling, but that has been proven not to be the case at this time. And right now, Russia, China, and Denmark are helping to transport the chemical weapons. They all have taken part in an operation to ensure safety during transportation because, of course, Russia wants to make sure that nobody gets their hands on these chemical weapons or some type of false flag event occurs without them being there. So they're protecting the cargo of the chemical weapons at this time. Now, we understand in Syria the rebels are losing the battle. We understand they're shipping in more sophisticated weapons. We understand they've been training a lot of soldiers in Jordan and many different bases. We realize that the United States, the central bankers, will need to make some type of move coming up very soon. We have the elections coming up in 2014. The opposition said we're not going to be involved in these elections because most likely they really can't because they changed the laws and there's no one that really can run at this time. But if the people do vote for Assad, it's going to make their case very difficult to prove that he's this dictator that the people hate, because if the people vote him back in, it's going to be very difficult to prove this at this time. And I believe before that time comes, there will be some type of event. And we've seen smaller ones occur. We saw the one in Turkey that failed. We see the other chemical weapon one that they're trying to spin to say Assad did it. But again, in my other reports, I said he really doesn't have a motive at this time. They're removing the chemical weapons from Syria at this time. And it makes no sense for Assad to do a chemical weapons attack when the UN Security Council, who is orchestrating the removal of the chemical weapons, to do this right in front of them. Just like back in 2013, Russia and Assad invited the UN Security Council in to inspect another chemical weapon attack, and all of a sudden they were saying that Assad just did one while they were there. It makes no sense. The only people that actually have a motive to do something right now are the United States government, Israel, and our other Arab nations to push this agenda forward, because they are losing the battle in Syria and they need to do something right now. But there are new reports coming in that thousands of foreign-backed militants have entered Aleppo city in northern Syria via Turkish borders, and we have witnessed the arrival of around 5,000 foreign-backed terrorists, fully equipped with various types of military equipment and sophisticated heavy weaponry in the city, and they're moving in right now. So we can see that something is definitely up and something is about to happen, and they're saying there's an additional 3,000 militants that are entering in different areas of Syria at this time. So they are definitely planning something. They are definitely getting ready to do something, and we all need to be ready, because there could be a false flag on the way at this time to push the agenda forward and to get this war started. Now, Canada is considering an internet bill that's like CISPA but on steroids. Earlier this week, politicians in Canada introduced the Digital Privacy Act, a bill that looks a lot like the United States Cyber Information Sharing and Protection Act, but it goes a little bit further, because the CISPA bill says the companies could share information if there is a cyber threat. The Canadian bill, the Digital Privacy Act bill, allows everyone to share information even though there isn't a cyber threat, and they can share it with anyone with legal immunity. So it seems like every country is going down the same path. They want the information from these companies shared with the government so they can continually spy on the people, make their lists, understand what assets they have, who they're in contact with. This is what this is all about. It's about control. That's pretty much it. Now, DHS is out there with an additional alert about the Heartbleed, saying that there are unconfirmed reports that the Heartbleed has already been used to attack encrypted communication systems of U.S. industrial control systems, and they are being investigated right now. And this goes to critical infrastructures like power grid systems, chemical weapons, chemical plants, and other type of infrastructure, and electric utilities. So all these things the Heartbleed might have been used for, where I'll say cyber actors might have got into the system and planted something there to be used later on. So we can see how all this propaganda is starting to now move forward right now, and they're letting everyone know that yes, this could happen. We could see a blackout. We could see this bug really affect all the systems. And again, we have to understand that the central bankers and the U.S. government, their backs are against the wall. They are losing Ukraine right now. They're losing control of the Middle East, and they're sending more troops down into Africa. Because why? They're losing the battle there. They realize that this dollar is completely failing. More and more nations are stepping away from the dollar. We went from 2000, where 55% of the countries held the dollar in reserves. It is now down to 33%, and they're saying as we go throughout this year, it could go as low to 20 to 25% or lower. And this is not good for the dollar, because every time these countries remove the dollar from their reserves, it comes back to the United States. They don't need to have them to buy oil. And Russia and China are now really pushing this agenda because of what the United States and the central bankers did. They imposed sanctions, and they're trying to protect themselves, saying, you know what, you're going to impose sanctions, let's start creating our own payment system, let's start trading not using the dollar. And we can see how this is turning out. We can see how the year goes along, things are getting worse. The government is trying to take the rights of the people away. They're trying to label people. They're trying to push their agendas because they think they just can. And we can see across the globe, the dollar is losing. Countries are dumping it. pretty soon they'll start dumping treasuries, and this is when things really start to heat up. And we just have to be prepared and ready for what is coming. And when I say prepared and ready, we have to make sure that we can talk to other people in our neighborhood, form groups, and of course a lot of people aren't awake, so that is kind of tough, but make sure that you are prepared with food, water, supplies, toiletries, extra medicine, weapons, gold, silver, cash. Make sure you have everything that you would possibly need so you wouldn't have to go out to the store when the riots are happening or when people are roaming the street. And let me just tell you a story. I was in a parking lot the other day, and this lady pulled into a spot, and this other woman was screaming at the top of her lungs at this lady for stealing her spot, and she would not stop. Now, the lady who took the spot, she was pregnant, but the lady said, "I'm pregnant, I can't walk that far," and the lady in the car did not care. She was screaming on the top of her lungs, yelling at her, and this went on for about 10 to 15 minutes of screaming. And I was thinking to myself, if we're arguing about a parking spot, what is going to happen when the actual collapse comes, when people are not prepared for this, when people are sitting there and they're in the stores, just like you saw those Walmart videos when they're having the sales and people are trampling on people, they don't care just to get that ridiculous sale. What is going to happen in a real life situation when the dollar does collapse, or we see this, it collapses and we see everything get very expensive and people are trying to run out before the prices continually go up? What is going to happen with everyone? People are not going to be able to handle this situation. And this is what worries pretty much everybody at this point, and this is why you need to protect your family and have supplies ready before this happens so you're not caught in that type of environment. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.